Well, good morning. I had the pleasure of working on the summary piece, which is all new to all of us. And so we'll get right into it. I'm going to do minimal talking, so I'll give you enough time to look at the two samples that I've put together for you. Again, for the purposes of this part of the presentation, you're going to presume that the references to the LCAP are correct, that the references to the rubric are correct from the summary to those plans, and that you're going to want, of course, keep in mind, and we'll go into more detail of keeping in mind the template instructions themselves and the approval manual that we all have. Again, some of the highlights from those sections are that, in fact, you want to make sure that all of these summary sections are briefly addressing the prompts, and that you, as I said before, you're verifying the section was completed and information is understandable, verifying the references to the rubric, which we are presuming are accurate in this case to save time, and references to the LCAP are included in the LCAP, again, to save time. Again, I understand that when we all work on this, and I'll be working on it this summer with our 32 districts, we will be spending a lot of time verifying those things, and that will take, in fact, a large amount of our time in verifying this section, the rubric and the references to the LCAP itself are accurate. Again, in more detail, of course, we're talking about making sure the year is correct, the LEA contact information is correct. For the story section, there's a brief description of students and community and how they're being served. The highlights identifies and summarize key features in the LCAP. Review of performance includes several sections. Greatest progress, what's the LEA proud of? As they look at the rubrics, and as they look at the state and local indicators, the local assessments, any stakeholder input or other information. And then, of course, they also need to address in this section how the LEA plans to maintain or build on that success. And then also they have to address greatest needs. So what areas are red or orange or not met for 2 or more years in the rubrics, as well as any other areas that need significant improvement. And then describe the steps the LEA is planning to take to address the needs. And then, of course, in performance gaps, they're looking for gaps between student groups, 2 or more performance levels. And in the rubrics, and identify any modification to the goals or actions within the LCAP to improve those levels. And then increased or improved services box. If there's something they've not previously addressed in any of the other boxes, they're going to want to identify those and significant ways in which the LEA is increasing improved services for the unduplicated student. So again, we're going to be looking at the yellow handout next. And so what he wants you to do is pull out that yellow handout and spend the next approximately 10 minutes looking at this this exercise. Look at, especially at the approval manual, chapter 4, pages 12 to 14. And also in the approval manual, there's an appendix A, page 32, there's a checklist, as well as the instructions in the back of the template itself. So we want to give you plenty of time right now. So for the next 10 minutes, take a look at this section, and does it meet the approval criteria? Well, hopefully everybody's had a chance to take a look at this practice, look at a evaluation of the summary piece. And again, what are the simple criteria that each one of these summary pieces must include? In that, of course, they have to have the LCAP year marked, and I believe this one does. The LEA information is provided. They have an excellent superintendent, if you noticed. Are all the prompts briefly addressed for each section? In this case, I believe that it is. And again, we had presumed, because it would have taken too much time, we don't have that kind of time to reference to the rubrics. That's going to take a great deal of time this summer. But we presume that the rubric references are accurate. And we also presume that all the goals, actions, expenditures were found in the goals, actions, services section as well. And again, was each section completed and all information understandable I believe in this case, in the example I gave you, it is correct. Again, minimally correct, okay, but correct. And again, that's why we kind of focused on that area. And in this section, however, the state board also approved the fact that an alternative format could be used. And again, I have some friends at Gobo, and many of you have seen their work, and they helped me create a graphic form of the summary pages. Again, I am covering the LCAP plan summary piece, so the budgetary box that you're going to find in this example is not relevant. I really didn't work on that. We just put some filler information in there, so that's not relevant. They'll be the next presenters will be doing the budgetary summary. And so in this case, again, you're only looking at the boxes that are relevant to the questions we've addressed in the regular example. So now what I'd like you to take is 10 minutes and look at the alternative form and see if whether or not that meets criteria. I know that many of you are still looking at this alternative format, but we need to move on. So many of you were hearing discussions about some things that you were looking at in particular. Again, I made some presumptions. I presumed that people were going to fill out the original form with the year on it, and I didn't express that earlier. And I was also presuming that on the original template, they're still going to put their LEA information, though this also has some LEA information, but that is a presumption that I kind of made for this section.
We're having a hard time hearing you in the back of the room.
All right, sorry. All right, so again, I was presuming that on the original form they were going to mark the year, and on the original form they would have provided the LE information. I don't think anybody would turn in the original template without that information on there. And so we were strictly looking at the responses to the prompts from the summary section. However, there were many things that were not responded to in this graphic representation, however. So things that I had made notes on, the prompt, how the LEA serves them in the story part is not clearly addressed, I could see. Also, in the greatest progress, I noted how the LEA will maintain or build on the success was not responded to. In the greatest needs, what steps is the LEA planning to take to address these areas with the greatest need of improvement is also not addressed. And some other people were noticing maybe a few other prompts were not responded to. So this was incomplete in that area. Again, we were presuming that the references to the rubric were correct, the references to the plan were correct. I thought the information was understandable, though I did get some questions as I roamed around the audience about whether or not some of it was clearly understandable. Again, in the link section of the presenter's agenda, I have a more completed version from Gobo for this type of graphic representation. And if there's pieces missing from there, I'd love to hear from any of you. My email is included in the presenter's agenda because I want to be as prepared as possible. I'm presuming I'm going to get some alternative examples. So if you have a chance and you could take a look at that linked, more updated, corrected version of this type of presentation, I would love to hear from you if you found some issues in that updated and corrected version as well. Are there any questions? Hearing none, I'll hand it off to our friends who are going to take us through the budget summary section.